join us in the holding area as the cars are getting ready for race 2 in the BRSCC Mazda MX-5 Championship. Joe Wiggin on pole position. Can he win again this time out? It's over to Andy to take you through all of the action.
Well, Joe Wiggin has already been in winning form this weekend at Cadwell Park. He won the first race of the weekend yesterday. Let's see how he gets on in race 2, where he starts from pole position with Matt Luff alongside him. Will Blackwell-Chambers and Mike Comber make up row 2, ahead of Jack Brewer and Brian Trott, back hopefully for a full year this time. Seb Fisher and Luke Pullin are on row 4, ahead of Ollie Graham and Jack Moody. Then it's Michael Nibbs and Owen Mills to round out the top dozen. Ben O'Hare is next alongside Christopher Ginn, then Paul Bateman and Richard Wotton on row 8. Ninth row for Cian Donaldson and Michael Green, ahead of Bill Taylor and Bruce Robinson. Then it's Stephen New, Graham Rumsey, Tom Mallett and Jonathan Fieldsend, mix of experienced drivers and new names to the championship. Aaron DiNapoli has George Grant alongside him on the 13th row, and then the rest filing in behind down to Anthony Pettigrew at the back. Now, we've got a slightly different format this weekend than we're used to. Gone are the A and B promotion and relegation groups. Instead, the entire field split into 3 groups, groups A, B and C. Each group races each other at least once over the course of the weekend, and each group races twice themselves. So yesterday's race was groups A and B against each other, and now for this second race of the weekend, group A is back out, but group C make their first appearance. So group A make up the right hand side of the grid as we look at it, group C on the left, but because everyone races twice over a weekend, you are still eligible to score the same amount of points, 100 points for a race win. Joe Wiggin won yesterday's race, and he will be looking to do the double here if he can in race number 2. On board with Stephen New here from down number 25, on his car. Away they go then, the lights are out, we're away and racing at Cadwell Park, and immediately you can see the challenge the drivers face. It's a very narrow circuit, but that won't stop them going 3 wide for the race lead as Will Blackwell-Chambers goes up the inside of Joe Wiggin and tries to get the advantage into turn 1. Matt Luff, the 72 car, was hung out to dry there. The top 2 still side by side as they turn into Charlie's, but I think it should be yesterday's winner, Joe Wiggin, that holds on. On board here with Bruce Robinson going up the inside of Bill Taylor there, the 144 car through the second part of Charlie's. That was a very congested run through the first couple of corners. Thankfully, they've all just about avoided making any serious contact, which has not always been the case in the past here at Cadwell. So the leader's single file. Brian Trott there, though, the green, orange, white and purple car, trying to go around the outside of Matt Luff for third, and I think he might have made that stick. Mike Comber was in the mix too. There's grass and dirt being kicked up. They're still side by side, and actually Trott wasn't able to complete the manoeuvre, got hung out to dry, and so Luff goes back through to third, and Mike Comber, very experienced MX-5 racer, moves through into 4th position. So on board here with the 45 car, this is Graham Rumsey, and he started down in 22nd place on the grid, so he is in for a very busy race, I think, here at Cadwell Park. Lots of locking up going on in front. At the very front, though, Will Blackwell-Chambers wants the lead away from Joe Wiggin. Blackwell-Chambers is a double Mazda MX-5 champion. He won the championship in 2017 and 2018, but of course was beaten to the title last year by John Langridge, who's made the step up to the MX-5 Super Cup for 2020. But in his place are several other drivers keen to try and get maybe their first title. Joe Wiggin in his second season in the championship, possibly the odds-on favourite, really. Joe Wiggin leads the way. He was third in the championship last year with 8 race victories and 11 podiums over the season. He was actually the most successful driver when you look at win and podium stats, just didn't necessarily have the consistency over a full season to challenge for the title. But this year, he most definitely appears to. But is he going to be able to win this race? Will Blackwell-Chambers is all over him as they go into the first corner. Blackwell-Chambers was third in yesterday's race. It was actually Ollie Allwood who was in second position, but Ollie Allwood was in Group B, so he's not racing in this one. He'll be back out again in third and final race of the weekend a bit later on. A couple of cars running wide there out of Charlie's corner, number 82 that was. Michael Nibbs just having a bit of a wobble, as the leading 3 now are together, because look, Matt Luff is back with the top 2, and he tries to go around the outside at Park Corner. He's at least into second. Can he get the race lead away from Joe Wiggin, though? If he can't, then you fear he might find himself back down in third, because on the outside line, it can be difficult sometimes to get back into line. We'll check back in with the leaders in a moment. We're back with Stephen New now, who is appropriately a new driver to the championship, and he is dicing away here with Harry Storer, another new name, number 17, just behind. Many of these drivers, of course, making their first steps into motor racing. Mazda MX-5 racing is not a bad way to do it. Right, back to the leaders, and well, forget about it being 3 for the lead. It's about 5 or 6 now. Wiggin still has the advantage, but Matt Luff did manage to get into second position. He's run wide out of the mountain though. He's all over the grass, and Will Blackwell Chambers will seize the opportunity to get back up the inside, and there's contact. Matt Luff's off. Oh, heavy impact into the wall for Matt Luff. He bounces back into the track. He's very lucky not to get collected by anybody. He's even luckier that he's continuing on his way. That car took a real whack into the barriers, but he's going to at least try and lip back to the pit lane. He might even try and get the car home to the finish, but his chances of a race win are gone. The order then, Wiggin leads the way by a considerable margin now in MX-5 racing terms over Will Blackwell Chambers in second place. Mike Comber is third, ahead of Brian Trott, of course, after Trott's failed attempt to go around the outside at Park Corner a lap or so ago. And that has slightly split the pack now, and it will be interesting to see whether or not Blackwell Chambers and Mike Comber and Brian Trott have the pace to go after the leader. Well, Blackwell Chambers is certainly pushing on, but he runs very wide there, going out of Charlie's corner. Now, these two cars, second and third, Blackwell Chambers and Mike Comber, are teammates. They're not running the same livery, but they're both being run by the Mike Comber racing team. So, in theory, they should work together to try and chase after the race leader, but we'll see whether or not that happens. 93 is Jack Brewer, by the way. Jack Brewer, another returning driver who showed glimmers of real pace in 2019. He's running in the top 5 and keeping up with the leaders at the moment. Bruce Robinson is a familiar sight in the BRSCC's Mazda MX-5 Championship, and he's back for another campaign this year at the wheel of the number 90 car, one of the leading Masters drivers in the race. In fact, he was the second highest Masters driver on the grid behind Paul Bateman. I'm not sure where Paul has found himself in the early stages of this second race of the weekend. It's Bruce Robinson's first race of the weekend, Paul Bateman's second. Now, that lead gap, I would say, is coming down. Joe Wiggin being caught here possibly by Will Blackwell Chambers and Mike Comber. Two cars working together should be quicker than one on its own, even on a tight and technical circuit such as this one, where you don't necessarily think of the slipstream as making a massive difference. But give these cars even the shortest of straights and they will use that draft to try and speed themselves up, and it looks like it's working for these two, because they are now definitely closer to Joe Wiggin as they cross the start-finish line. Yes, gap coming down that time. Top 5 then gapping the rest of the field, and then look at this big train of cars fighting for the bottom half of the top 10. That's Seb Fisher, number 81, the silver and purple car, who's in 6th place for the time being. He's got people like Luke Pullen and Ollie Graham, Jack Moody all trying to find a way past him. Leaders back out of Charlie's again then. Will Blackwell Chambers leading the way in this second round, essentially, of the championship. A 15-minute race. It's such a busy weekend here at Cadwell Park. They've had to reduce some of the race distances. This would normally have been a 20-minute race, but obviously, because of the late start to the season, the BRSCC have had to move mountains to get everyone out on track at least 4 or 5 times this year. And a shout out to the BRSCC and indeed all of the organising clubs in the UK for working so hard to get a motor racing season out of 2020. It seemed for a lot of months like we might not get any racing this year. We are going to get an awful lot of action, and now that we're going racing again, the action has been particularly good. We've had a great weekend of racing here at Cadwell Park from all of the BRSCC's championships, and the MX-5 Championship is always one of the most exciting. Now, that was a rare mistake there for Will Blackwell Chambers, and he just ran wide into the mountain. Mike Comber's gone through into second now, and a little bit of that progress they were making against the race leader has now been undone, sadly. So, wait and see now whether Mike Comber has the pace that Blackwell Chambers had in second place to close in on the cars in front. Meanwhile, further down the order, we're watching back at Stephen New. He's the blue car, just behind. Harry Storr is still behind him, I think, the number 17 car, but another great example of how wherever you are in the field, you've got someone to play with. Whether you're an old hand at this or making your first appearance in the championship, there ought to be, with over 30 cars on the grid, someone that is of roughly your pace and that you can have a battle with out on track. That's why MX-5 racing really is a great way of learning your craft as a racing driver. Cars don't have that much grip, so you have to learn a little bit about car control and balancing the car on the grooved tyres that are used in the championship. But also, that allows this really close racing and enables you to learn all about slipstreaming, outbraking, defending, and such. And the AB Motorsport cars go through there, number 35, and that is Aaron DeNapola, and 45, just behind him, is Graham Rumsey, who started ahead of Aaron earlier on in the race. Bruce Robinson's just at the head of that little group, although they are kind of separating themselves a bit now. On board with Robinson, up to Park corner, checks the mirrors. Looks at something on his lap, not quite sure what, but he's looking very relaxed behind the wheel, is Bruce. And Bruce Robinson not really gaining on the group in front, I would say, at this stage. Could be in for a slightly lonely second half of the race. So too could Joe Wiggin, although he won't be complaining about that because he has one thing on his mind this year, and that is the championship, and a double race victory here from Cadwell Park would be the perfect way to start his championship campaign. Look at the way, though, that Will Blackwell-Chambers has dropped further back now from his teammate Mike Comber. I think he made another mistake through the mountain there. It's almost like the brake balance isn't quite right on that number 18 car. He's been caught now by Brian Trott and Jack Brewer. There's Seb Fisher still in 6th position, just about holding on from, was that Ollie Graham behind him? I didn't quite catch the number. And another great scrap going through, 22 there, the orange car is Owen Mills. And Paul Bateman, I think, was a part of that scrap as well. Right, third place battle is really where the race is now, though, at the front of the field, isn't it? Because Will Blackwell-Chambers, with these couple of little moments he's having and losses of time, is just starting to have to worry about defending from Brian Trott, although he's good through the first couple of corners there, gets back away from Trott and Brewer, and now they are the closest two cars in this leading quintet as they make their way up the Park straight. Brewer could be close enough to have a go at Brian here on the brakes into Park corner. Brian was a race winner last year, had 5 podiums. Oh, and he's off at Park corner. Well, I was about to say he had 5 podiums last year, including a brace of podiums. He was on the podium in all 3 races at Cadwell Park last season, so this is a good track for him. And just as I started making the point, he threw himself at the scenery. Thankfully, he avoids hitting anything solid, but a lot of time lost at the top of the hill. And, well, that was the easiest overtake Jack Brewer's had to make all day. He's into 4th place, but he was applying the pressure there, and I think Jack maybe just forced the mistake out of Brian Trott. And Brian, not like him to make mistakes either, but as I said, only did a part season last year, and possibly could benefit from doing a full year this year, but of course financial restraints and other working commitments sometimes mean that drivers can't quite commit to a full season, which is perfectly understandable, but Brian's a great driver to have in the championship, so hopefully he sticks around. Right, here's this battle for, well, what was 6th, it's now a place in the top 5. Seb Fisher hanging on grimly here from the number 24 car. It is Ollie Graham behind him, and Ollie Graham now sensing a chance to get into that top 5. They come out of the final corner. Brian Trott, you can see, has rejoined just behind them, so he's 7th place and still has a little bit of time, about 5 minutes or so, to maybe work his way back onto their tail. He should be a bit quicker than them. He was in the early part of the race, and as I said, I don't think there was any damage done after that grassy excursion at Park corner. Brian might be able to salvage a decent result from this. Brian in his first race of the weekend, so he'll get another chance later on as well, such as the strength in depth this year in the championship. It doesn't really matter which group you look at, A, B or C, there are quick drivers in all of them, so each race should be equally competitive. So Fisher there trying and succeeding so far in keeping Ollie Graham behind him. Nice 5-car gaggle coming through here. This is the one that at the back of it has Michael Nibbs, the 82, trying to get past number 22 Owen Mills. And number 4 Paul Bateman in there. So Paul Bateman, the Masters leader, he's made some good progress. Started 15th, he's inside the top 10 now. Just about anyway. This 5th place scrap works its way back out of Mansfield towards the mountain. These two really start holding each other up. That will further assist Brian Trott in catching them. 5 comes towards us. That is Ben O'Hare. 27 right behind him. The last of the drivers I haven't name-checked yet in this group, Luke Pullen. So these 5 drivers all pretty evenly matched. The gap's sometimes ebbing and flowing. Michael Nibbs there with a new livery on his car, as many of them seem to have this year. Every sideways through the hall bends, but you've got to be comfortable driving a slightly sideways car to be quick in an MX-5. As I say, they don't have that much mechanical grip, so to carry as much speed through the corners as possible, you have to be quite willing to let that rear end step out. They're quite manageable though. I've spoken to a number of drivers who have raced these cars, and they say that you can drift them through the corners quite easily as long as you know the basics of car control, and that is definitely the quickest way to drive them, and that's something a lot of the drivers who make the step up to the MX-5 Super Cup with the newer Mark III cars, something they tend to struggle with is that those cars are a bit snappier and a bit stiffer. They don't really like the manhandling that you have to do to make one of these Mark 1s go quickly. A number of drivers making that step up this year. Sam Smith has moved up to Super Cup, so to the reigning champion John Langridge. Now, at the front of the field, it's all changed again. So the second place pair have caught Joe Wiggin. They've also swapped places again. Will Blackwell Chambers is back ahead of Mike Comber now. And then Mike gets into the back of him, going into the mountain, and they start to lose time again. So I'm not quite sure what's happened there, but there's maybe a bit of traffic involved. I can see some back markers just up the road, but I don't think they've lapped anybody yet. So it's a bit of a mystery, but somehow it's all changed at the front. Joe Wiggin still leading the way. 85, Anthony Pettigrew, I think, will be the first car to go a lap down. Started at the back of the grid, but just keeping himself out of trouble. He'll have to work a bit harder to keep himself out of trouble when this lot catch him, because they won't want to hang around in putting him a lap down. Across the start-finish line they go again. He got back out again slightly this time, onto the final lap of the race as well. So if Blackwell Chambers and Comber are going to do anything about Joe Wiggin, they're going to have to really work together here, and they weren't particularly working together well at the end of the previous lap. Anthony Pettigrew gets well out of the way as they turn into Charlie's corner, and Will Blackwell Chambers and Mike Comber are also able to find a way through pretty quickly. Just not convinced they're quite going to have time to get there now, are they? Joe Wiggin was under a bit of threat at the end of the previous lap, but he's put together a good start to this lap. That's number 72 going through there, which is one of the AB Motorsport cars. That's Matt Luff, who started on the front row of the grid. So Matt has quite obviously had some dramas. We saw him getting muscled to the outside line at the start, and he's almost gone a lap down. Right, through the gooseneck for the final time, and Mike Comber is on the attack here. They're really quick, those two, aren't they, through that middle part of the lap. That's where they close back in on Joe Wiggin. But the trouble is, most of the overtaking opportunities come before that point on the track. From here on in, chances to get through are limited. Mike Comber, though, is going to try and throw one up the inside of Blackwell Chambers for second place. A beautiful move from Mike Comber, and he gets himself back in front of the former champion. And Mike Comber then into second position. And he's not quite going to have time to catch Joe Wiggin, but you have to wonder whether, if he hadn't lost second a couple of laps ago, he might have had the pace to do it, because he was definitely leading this pair onto the tail of the 41 car. As it is, though, second place might be as good as it gets. It's going to be 2 wins from 2 races for Joe Wiggin, and one of the championship favourites starts off his 2020 campaign in perfect fashion. He comes across the start-finish line, punches the air in celebration, and wins the second race at Cadwell Park. Second place goes the way of Mike Comber, third for Will Blackwell Chambers, and we are hearing there might be a couple of post-race penalties being applied for some drivers. Number 27, Luke Pullen, in particular, will drop out of the top 10 as a result of a post-race penalties. Wiggin, Comber and Blackwell Chambers, your podium finishers, though, ahead of Jack Brewer and Seb Fisher. Ollie Graham, Brian Trott and Jack Moody are next, ahead of Ben O'Hare and Paul Bateman, the leading Masters driver, in 10th. Michael Libbs is next with Luke Pullen 12th after his penalty. Owen Mills, Richard Wotton, Christopher Ginn and the rest filing through behind. Other penalties that were dished out, by the way, Bruce Robinson was given a 5-second time penalty for exceeding track limits, and car number 35, Aaron DeNapola, was given a 5.5 second time penalty for causing a collision. So there was quite a lot going on in that race, be that at the front, the back or in the midfield, but it's a brilliant win once more from Joe Wiggin.
Well, third place in race 2, but hard fought, a lot of action going on.
Yeah, it was a good race that. We had some good changes. I'm quite disappointed in myself. I think I could have done a lot better then, but for some reason third gear's eluding me at the moment, so we'll have a look at that and see if we can come back stronger.
Yeah, there was quite a lot of action going on, particularly coming up into the fast right and left-hander. A little bit of touching there, maybe?
I believe the car in front of me went on the grass and I was just driving, and then the next thing I know there was a bang on my rear quarter, and that's about all I knew of it. See what happened, but I'm not really sure what went on there, to be honest.
Okay, well, we wish you all the best in the third race. Congratulations once again on third.
Cheers.